have an age difference. We have life differences.
This is how you should live your life.
I got the faith, because to get the faith,
Got it. Well, let's jump into this.
this is the Old School, New School podcast.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Old School, New School podcast. I am Will Charles Egan, and as always,
Hello, Chris Meekins. How are you?
one of these days, Chris is going to learn how to count with his fingers, because he
Yes.
still kind of does this weird, and he does it backwards.
Yes.
You can do this.
One. Well,
Not the right one. Don't do that finger for one.
did you ever meet an old person and they're like start pointing to somebody
With
and
their
they
middle
say
finger?
things that are totally inappropriate? You're like, you don't say words like that anymore. Like they'll say, there was this colored guy, and I'm like, well, what color was he? And that,
Right.
like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I know what you mean, but
you
it's
can't do
wrong. You
that.
can't say that. That's like,
Right.
that's wrong.
It's getting to a point with some of my family members where it's like, hey, don't do that.
Yeah.
They're like, what do you mean? That's what we've always done. I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
I know, and that's great, but not anymore. It's just
Right.
We're trying to be
Yeah.
inclusive, because that's how we are.
We're so inclusive.
Unless they're women, and
right.
they're not
yes.
included in
yeah.
the club.
Unless they're not straight white men.
Yeah,
That's who we're inclusive of.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what we are, believe it or not.
we are.
Sometimes to a T.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I have we have a lot of neighbors here that are not. They're
Don't
gay.
say it.
You're allowed to say gay.
Oh, the gay. Yeah. No, you can say that.
Yeah, and they're. I mean, they're some of the nicest guys in the whole. I mean, that's like really nice people. So
Yeah.
whatever. I'm just like, you
All
know
shapes
what?
and sizes.
Here's what I know.
Mm.
Not knowing Jesus is what keeps you out of.
Yes, it's kind of like what we talked about last week. And if you like this content that we're making,
Yeah.
please hit the subscribe button that is above Chris's head right now.
So I don't understand that whole thing. I just know this:
yes,
get them to know Jesus,
right. That's ultimately what
and
matters.
God will figure out what He needs
Right.
to do with that other person. Because I really don't need to be calling you up and saying, hey, well, I think that you need to be doing. Oh, by the way,
Right.
by the way, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, right. Yo, I just show up and what are we doing?
Yeah. Tell me, how many words are in your book?
So I just finished. I had this weird moment the other day. I was writing at the Foxtail Coffee. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's at the UTC Mall.
I drive by it. I can't afford that stuff.
It's so, I have to find the cheapest thing on the menu. It's insane. But I'm typing, I go there all the time and I write and I write and I write. And then I got, I'm not really keeping track of where I'm at. And then I'm writing. I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm like at the last page of my storyboarding. I finish. I'm like, I'm done. I still have to write the epilogue, which is a little bit more story. But the main story is finished. I mean, I literally have maybe 5 more pages to write.
No way.
Yeah. And then
And how many words?
150,000 words, which is like,
So you think he's got a lot of words here? You ought to
Yeah,
say,
for
on
real.
paper, he had to get a bigger computer because it couldn't remember.
Can I see that book there? Like this book is maybe shy of 100, maybe like 90,000 words. This book. What I wrote is like a Stephen King book. It's like this, and I never really planned for that to happen. But as I'm writing, and I guess my words are just, I have so many of them.
No,
I
come
know,
on,
right?
come on.
I'm so verbose in my linguistic choices that I have accidentally created like the Lord of the Rings, and so I have to go back and trim it.
Do you when you were growing up? Do your English teachers were they like, oh, we love you, Will, because you're like going to be a writer?
No, they were never like, you're so gifted and talented with. I mean, I had a creative writing teacher that instilled that.
Yeah.
But in terms of English, which is just vapid, boring, just plain, let's read Shakespeare, do an analysis of shit. I'm like, no. It's like how musicians say if you use it to put food on the table, you start hating it. It was kind of like, for me, it's like you're putting my love for writing in a box, and I don't like that.
Oh, well.
But my creative writing teachers loved me.
Yeah.
I won awards.
My English class was the first class of the day, and we had an open campus.
Oh,
So I didn't make a lot.
You
of
didn't
those.
go.
I went to breakfast.
You just didn't go.
You'd see someone saying, hey, school starts in 5 minutes. If we leave now, we can go get breakfast. We'll be back by second period.
You'd make these bargains with yourself.
And I'm pretty sure everybody that's listened to us more
Right.
than once are like, man, maybe you should go back and take that class.
Yeah.
All those classes again.
Your word choice isn't exactly Your use of discipline.
I make
wasn't-
them up. I make them up as we go. I'm like,
Right. Yeah.
And your work is going all good and everything else like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
It's starting to get. I'm getting into the rhythm of it. It's getting easier.
Yeah.
I'm able to do it efficiently and quickly.
Yeah.
This last week, the couple of last days, my boss wasn't there. They were off at a thing. Both of my assistant manager and my manager. So I was just kind of.
And are you still doing the youth group? Are you
Yeah.
able,
I mean, I'm not able to go as much. I'll be there tomorrow, but I'm not able to go to the high school groups just because of my schedule. But hopefully here soon, fingers crossed, things work out
that's awesome.
in my favor because I do want to go back. It's
You gotta
been
do
too
stuff.
long.
You got to serve.
Exactly.
Got to serve. This morning, thanks for asking about me.
Okay, right. Well, you always ask about me, and then I just talk about
Just
myself.
saying. Just saying.
How was your week, Chris, with the car wash?
Oh, thank you for asking me. No. But this morning we had Connor Bizet. Is that how they say it? Bizet.
BZ. Yeah.
Connor. And
He came to Galvanized?
what a good-looking guy, man.
Sure,
Everything that I am, he is not. I mean, this is like 5 or 6 days of no shaving.
Are you serious?
And he's clean cut. His
Oh, yeah.
hair is going back. I forgot to comb my hair before I went this morning. In fact, I still may not.
Bedhead. Goodness, Chris.
So I'm introducing this super good,
Sharp.
sharp
At
guy.
Galvanized?
Yeah. Is he your age?
Connor's older than me by a couple of years.
Okay. So he's in charge of the legacy,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And no, not legacy, where you give money.
Oh, Kingdom Builders.
Kingdom Builders.
He's in charge of that.
I don't think he's in charge. He's just.
But he works for Kingdom
it.
Builders. Yes.
And so
okay.
he's a representation.
But I know what you
so
mean,
people
yeah.
are like, "Hey, I want to talk to someone about giving all this money," and he's like, "Oh,
Sure.
yeah, I'll talk to you."
I got a guy.
So, so he came and talked to the group, and he was so good. He goes,
yeah.
"My dad and my brother are more the speakers," and I'm like, "Well,
He's pretty good, too.
you're
It's
pretty good at
runs in the
this.
family.
And it's like, you're like, how did you raise these kids to be such good people? I mean, I've met three. I think I met the girl one time, but
Yeah.
I'm an old man. You got to be careful around that.
That's true.
Because these young girls are like, okay, old man,
weird.
leave me alone, old
Yeah.
man. So I just try to, hi, how you doing? I heard you do a food truck.
Right.
But
okay.
these two kids that I met so far are like amazing, and it goes
Yeah.
to show you their parenting.
Mhm.
And so I'm sorry for you that know my kids. I really tried because I didn't go to English class.
Right. That's the reason. Yes.
Speaking of which,
Uh-huh.
what are we going to talk about today?
Well, you wanted to talk a little bit about discipline, and I liked how you kind of opened there with the BZETs and how I think they're a pretty good example, I would say, of a disciplined family, like teaching discipline.
And when you're listening to
Right.
Randy, you're like, he's so funny,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, is he disciplined? And then you listen to the message, you're like, oh, yeah, somebody put some time,
Oh yeah,
and
Mm-hmm. right,
some thought into this.
right. Discipline doesn't mean, because people hear discipline, they think, well, he's boring, and he can't be funny.
Yeah.
He doesn't have fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
You think of what's the movie with that guy?
Don't even. What? You're kidding, right? Really? What's the movie with that guy?
The Accountant.
Oh,
I
Ben
suppose
Affleck.
I suppose you didn't see that movie.
Probably, was it Ben Affleck?
Yeah.
Where he has OCD?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And you think of that with everything's got a
His eggs
you
are
think
perfect.
of OCD
OCD, exactly.
when you think of discipline.
Right.
And I was raised in a house where pretty much you were left to yourself. I mean, they my mom did the laundry and stuff like that, but nobody ever said do your homework.
Really?
So I'm for
Wow, no
probably
way.
the most of my life, I might have done homework 2 times, and I'm not even being sarcastic.
Seriously.
Oh yeah, and
Wow.
again, those that are listening are like,
Goes to show.
I buy it.
Yeah.
It's showing off.
Right.
Never was told to do my homework. I mean, they'd say, "Hey, did you have homework?" And I said, "No."
Just lie. Yeah.
And then was never really, no one ever said, "Hey, did you brush your teeth?" Hey, did you make your bed?
Yeah.
There was never that. There was 8 of us, all wild.
Yeah. So how could you?
And
right?
it was in the 70s. And my dad,
Okay.
he just wanted to hold the thing together. Because
Yes.
he was on his own at 12 years old. He lived
Wow.
literally on his own from 12 years old.
Really?
Yeah. And so,
Goodness.
it was from the streets, and my mom was,
Yeah.
there's the generation before me, that's the World War II people.
Okay. The
What-
greatest generation.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were like, they had a shitty life. I
Yeah.
can't put it any other way.
Yes.
I mean, because they had
did.
the war, they had World War One.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad joined the
The Korean War,
He thought it was world. He thought it was the Coast Guard. He joined the Navy. He was
Oh,
17
no
years
way.
old, lied, and he found himself. And then the war started
no.
the next year, and so they were just, the goal was, if I can get my kids to graduate from high school, I've succeeded.
Yes.
And all 8 of us graduated.
Well, thank God.
And nobody went to college.
Okay.
I think some people took some classes. I went to college,
Okay.
but on the weekends.
You were at a college.
I was at a college on Friday, Saturday night, Kent State University.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It was wild there.
Oh, yeah.
It was wild. But anyway, so all that to say is that there's some people that were born, discipline was never real.
Yeah, it didn't exist.
And that's the same thing you had, right?
Well, yes, I was.
Sorry. Mom.
No, Mom, I was perfect, right? She can vouch for me. Well,
Well, there's 2 against 1.
yes, when I'm an only child, it's a lot easier to kind of keep the fort together. And I think, not to toot my own horn, but I really was, I was kind of I didn't want to be rebellious. And my mom told me this recently. She was like, well, we didn't want you to be a mama's boy, so we kind of wanted you to do your own thing a bit and take risks a bit. Some people are going to hear this and be like, oh, you were a troubled kid. But I've never had a curfew, so I could come home whenever. I
just broke the curfew every day.
yeah, exactly.
You need to be home.
I never had a strict set of rules. There was no here's your chore list, or here's your allowance, or here's this. It was kind of just go outside.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. And I think I had to discipline myself, because in that environment, if you have a rambunctious kid like yourself, you probably would have just done whatever you wanted.
Well, and you probably felt loved.
Yes, that's true. I definitely did. I was given the freedom, which to me as a young kid equaled love, right? Yeah. My parents let me do what I want, so they love me, right? Yeah. Which was nice, and it worked.
And I loved me too.
That much is very evident.
Yeah. I was thinking this on the way home. People are like, you two have a lot of words. You have to be kind of egotistical.
You have to be full of yourself to do this. Just straightforward, yes.
So we're sorry if we're full of ourselves, but we want to reach people for Jesus.
I want to try to be full of myself a little less so that I can help people.
Yeah.
Right.
We're a lot more humble when Pastor Randy's around.
Right, yes.
Okay,
and then
I'll go ahead and keep my mouth shut for a couple minutes. But anyway, but you were disciplined you make your bed in the morning, you do stuff like that. I mean, you clean your room.
Not really.
Oh, no?
No, my room was a nightmare when I was a kid. My dad would come in with a trash bag every once in a while, or the trash can, and I would already know what it meant, and I'd just start weeping. Because I was very disorganized as a kid, it's very weird because
you're not now.
No, I'm extremely organized. But when I was a kid, I just have garbage everywhere in my room. And I wouldn't make my bed, and I was very kind of rambunctious. I was really just high energy. And then I had, again, not to toot my own horn, but I really had to teach myself discipline because I never really had it. I was just a crazy kid.
Do you remember when that kind of happened? You're like, I need to get some order or discipline in my life.
Sure. Well, it definitely wasn't one day I suddenly had a revelation from God. Like Joseph Smith got these golden tablets, and suddenly it was all of a sudden I was really, once I'd been saved in middle school, I was really okay, well, God is real, right? Okay. And if God is real, then that means that there are things that have to change, things that have to happen in my life. And part of it, even down to the little things, was I have to be clean. And I don't know what happened, but I really just started becoming very anal about things have to be neat. Okay. And I never was like that as a kid. And so I really have no idea why, but all of a sudden one day I was I have to be neat and I have to be disciplined. And then, I'm very crazy about rigorous physical fitness.
Do you think it was also the Bible talks about? I mean, if you read the Bible, God is a God of order. Mm-hmm. Do you think that it was part of your learning or no?
Well, honestly, when I started becoming super, I don't want to say disciplined, but orderly in the I'd kept my room clean and I would, focus on little things like that. It was really before I kind of leaned into my faith. It was just this natural thing that kind of happened, but I don't know. But really when it came to my faith and ordering my steps in alignment with what Christ wants for us, that really definitely came from my faith.
Okay.
So I think the being neat and keeping my room thing is just kind of separate, whatever.
Okay.
It's just who I am.
You just found pleasure in that, and you're like, hey,
Yeah.
this is actually better.
It's just better. You should clean your room. You should probably be physically active. You should it's just things that made sense. But ordering my life, yes, very much so. Discipline's very important.
I think for me as a young man, I was like, just, do it. And I'll do anything. My dad was the kind of guy, I bad rap him. And he did a really good job.
That's good.
Actually.
For what he had.
For what he had, for the tools he had and what he came from, he did an amazing job. Because I think I had 4 kids and I'm like, I would never do this again.
Right, yeah.
And he had 8.
Yeah.
With no clue on how to do it. So as Joyce and I became Christians separately, but kind of at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
then
cool.
as we got married, we're like, okay, we're going to have to figure some things out.
Mm-hmm.
And then our pastor came over and he says, well, why don't you just try reading your Bible once a day?
Great place to start.
And I'm like, okay, what would that look like? He goes, why don't you read a proverb and a psalm a day?
Okay.
And start reading that. And I remember, I can vividly remember it like it was yesterday, reading the Proverbs 1 and thinking, what the heck is this?
Yeah, what is going on?
What is going on here? And I'm like, well, I'll just keep on reading it.
Yeah.
Because it's a different language.
Well, it's a different culture.
Different culture, but it's a different way of thinking.
Yes. To us, it's very alien, both because we're Americans and because we weren't Christians before.
Is it kind of like a writer? You get used to a writer's style?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that comedians will do where if they really entrench themselves in a way a comedian is, and I think you can teach from this, then sometimes they find themselves accidentally doing their jokes on stage. Like if you just get into that, there it is, the flow state. If you just get into that, you're feeling the rhythm of the crowd and you're feeling the groove. Robin Williams was guilty of this a couple of times. He would end up doing other people's material, and he wouldn't really mean to do it. But I think that we could kind of learn from that, and that it's kind of human nature to kind of just be monkey see, monkey do. Okay. Right? So if I'm familiarizing myself with the Psalms, even though at the beginning you're like, what is happening right now? Yeah. It's from another culture, which one is like, I don't even know what this means.
Like 2,000 years ago.
Right. And 2, I don't believe in God yet. And so if I'm reading this and I'm a new believer, or maybe I just started believing in God, so I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
If you just start out, it's kind of like, okay, but the more and more you do it, the more you naturally begin to replicate that. Like you hear the expression, if I look at the 5 people that you surround yourself with most, I know where you'll be in 5 years. That's because humans are naturally very community oriented. And we bounce off of each other. We replicate each other's attitudes, behaviors. And so if you align yourself with the ultimate goal, this is very like Jordan Peterson kind of psychology. But his whole thing is like, if you align yourself with the ultimate goal, if monkey see, monkey do is true, then you will align yourself with the highest potential of yourself.
So people that, I mean, people that go to the Catholic Church, you're like, okay, I can see their Catholicism. Sure. Because they hang around with Catholic people. Yeah. They do Catholic things.
Yes.
You can always tell, like, be nice. Mm-hmm. Be nice.
Yeah, be nice.
You can always tell, like, Christian women in, like their hairstyle.
Okay, yes.
There's a style that Christian women have.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you're like,
the traditionalist.
I'm pretty sure she's a Christian. You're like, why? Because she's got a jean skirt on. No. I'm pretty sure she's a homeschooler.
I think that's what you're talking about.
But there's a style that that you see, and that they're
modesty
or something like that.
Right.
Okay.
Like if a girl walked into a church with my hair, we'd be like, what's her deal?
The other day, there was these people that I met, and first time they ever been to church, and they're new believers, and she had a pair of short shorts on, and they were ragged and like all cut up, and I'm like, praise God, she's here.
Yes, good.
And throughout the years, you'd see girls that maybe came from a different lifestyle, and they put on their best clothes, but you still look like you were out drinking last night.
It's very revealing. Yeah. And so in a church setting, it's very like, what's happening?
Don't they know the rules?
Right.
But but maybe I'm being a Pharisee, right?
Exactly. I think that's the point. Like if a girl walks into church with my hairstyle, people immediately turn an eye and go, "What?" But I think what our reaction should be is,
Praise God, she's
"Thank
there.
God she's here."
Yeah.
And maybe she is. Maybe she has deeper faith than me, and she just also really likes to have crazy hair, which is fine.
We have a Bible study on Thursday night, and you know this other guy I met, he's all tattooed up, and he's been was in Iraq a couple times.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's struggling with PTSD, and he's, like I said, he's got tattoos, and he's like, I don't know if I belong there. I'm like, listen, you belong in this Bible study, and it's Thursday. And there's more tattoos there than ever before.
Yeah.
You know, there's guys like out of prison, and,
Sure.
and it's like amazing. It's like you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's people just like me.
Yeah.
I don't know how do we get here.
Well, I don't know.
So discipline. So recently, I just really am, and I think I mentioned this last week, but I'm really sensing that God's discipleship is, well, it's the last thing Jesus said to do.
That is true.
It's the last thing he said. Go and make disciples. Baptizing in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. So, but go make disciples. And I'm like, well, maybe we should try and do that.
Maybe we should do that.
And so one of my all-time favorites years ago was a book called Celebration of Discipline by Richard Foster.
It's an odd title.
And I know that it's sanctioned by Bayside because I've heard Randy refer to it as one of his favorite discipleship books.
Cool.
And I happen to have it on the shelf. I've read it a couple times. I have it on audio so that when I drive, I can listen to it. Every once in a while, I need a tune-up.
Ooh, okay.
Well, no. I probably always need
need a tune-up, exactly.
But I was thinking maybe we could talk about this for the next couple of weeks. What do you think?
That'd be a great idea.
And so I bought you a book.
Oh, thank you.
And so we're gonna go on that. And again, learning what is spiritual discipline. So when we talked about it a couple of seconds ago, is like learning that, oh, maybe I should read my Bible. Well, there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
And then the next step was I would be like, I probably should read my Bible every day. But then that means you got to get up like early.
Yes. And I'm not a morning person.
Yeah, I like to get up at the crack of noon.
Yeah.
And what used to be. And so I would make a rule that I couldn't watch any Seinfeld because I used to watch
that was the big thing
every day.
Yeah.
Every day, because it was on every afternoon at like 5:30. And I was even at the fire station, and I would say, you can't watch Seinfeld until you have your quiet time. Because I was doing this thing, Search the Scriptures. I don't know if it's really intense.
Yeah.
I mean, you're almost like a Bible scholar when you're done with that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
I'd never finished it. But, but it was like, you need to know these disciplines, because what ends up happening is, like my dad, I never had 8 kids before.
Right.
I never had a wife and 8 kids and a job and a house and a mortgage in the suburbs.
Oh, God, stop it.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot.
So
what do I do?
You when I told you about this, you had some kind of quote. And
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, it's one of my favorite quotes. It's from, did you ever watch that new Dune movie? The science fiction? Of course you did. Why would I even ask that?
Doom?
See? Dune.
No.
D-U-N-E. It was the sci-fi, the sand planet movie. It was super popular with the sandworms and everything. Did you even hear about this?
This is the first.
It's the biggest movie of this year, but that's fine. I'll wear my T-shirt next episode and I'll explain it.
Is it on Netflix?
I think it's on HBO, but that's beside the point. See, now you need to be subscribed to too many services.
Now I need to be disciplined.
Yes, now you need to just not watch it because it's not worth it. It's actually a great movie. But the author of the book that it's based off of, Frank Herbert, he's my favorite science fiction author, one of my biggest inspirations. And he has this quote from one of the books. I forget which one it is, but he would always open each chapter with a fictional quote that he would make up that was like from one of his characters. And this one really stuck out to me. It was like a Fremen proverb. And again, you don't even know what that Fremen word means, but it was a proverb of these people in his world that he made. And it was, let me see if I can remember it. The way that he worded it was so interesting. It was, seek freedom and become captive to your desires, but seek discipline, there you will find your liberty. So I'll say it again. Seek freedom and you'll become captive to your desires.
Okay.
Seek discipline,
Wow.
and there you will find your liberty.
Wow.
Yes.
Maybe you should be teaching me.
Well, maybe. I didn't say that quote, so.
Yeah, but you know it.
But I know it, yes. And I know what it means, right?
Do you okay, I've asked you this before. Do you have a photographic memory?
I don't know. No, I actually have a terrible, that's not true, but I have a pretty bad memory. I'm taking these tests for my life insurance, certification, and I'm going through these tests. I'm like, I feel like I've heard this somewhere, but I don't even remember. And it was the previous question, and I can't even remember what it was. And so, yeah, no, I don't. But if I want to commit something to memory, I can, if it means something to me.
But
Like
you're
this.
But you're disciplined to do the work
Mm-hmm.
when it interests you. You're like, there's work that needs to be done.
That's the kicker, is because like in English class, it's putting what I like in a box, and it's requiring only certain things. Whereas I want to be in creative writing class right now, not in English, right? So if I'm interested in it, I'll be very disciplined. Yes.
So I just want to read this. What is this thing called here?
The forward.
The forward,
Yeah, I guess. Or the
binder
yeah, the binding.
cover.
I should know these things, shouldn't I?
Well, you're
Wanting
gonna
be
have
an
to write
author.
one.
I'm gonna have to write one day. Yeah.
I try to stay away from it because then I'm like, I got to read more stuff. But anyway,
Right.
so this book was rewritten a
The
couple
synopsis.
times. This is the 25th anniversary, and this was in '96.
Oh man.
So it's like 50 years old. But
Yeah.
discipline, spiritual discipline. But anyway, it says, I'm going to read it. Dividing the disciplines into 3 movements of the spirit.
Okay. 3.
Foster, the guy's name, shows how each of these areas contribute to a balanced spiritual life. And that's, I think everybody's looking for a balance.
Balance,
I mean,
yeah.
that's all you hear. It's, I need balance in my life.
Yeah.
Anyway, the inward disciplines of meditation,
Mm-hmm.
prayer, and fasting and study offer avenues of personal examination and change. And so we're going to talk about each one of the discipline of meditation,
Okay.
talk about prayer, talk about fasting.
Fasting's a weird one because we don't do that.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
I know, Jason, my buddy, big,
Yeah,
tall,
yeah.
skinny guy.
Yes.
He fasts one day a week
Really?
to get his mind right.
Huh.
Every Monday. he
We should
fasts.
have him on.
Should we?
Yeah. He'd be great to have on. Let's have him on for one of the topics here.
We'll talk about fasting.
There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Jason, if you're listening to us. Anyway. Okay. The potential, the outward disciplines of simplicity, solitude, submission, and service help prepares us to make the world a better place. The corporate disciplines of confession, worship, guidance, and celebration bring us nearer to one another and to God. And so they're talking about things that we just don't talk about anymore.
Yeah, these are very like old school. I'm a Baptist, and these are boring, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is called a synopsis, by the way. I remembered what it was, but yeah, this is really like challenging stuff, because this is especially like the ones where it's fasting, meditation. What am I, a monk or something?
Yeah.
Do I have to do this?
And I think you get afraid of that. Remember last week we talked about being a Jesus freak, and we're afraid of that label.
Exactly.
This is the same kind of thing. We're afraid of something that's going to change me, and I'm going to lose all control.
Right.
Which in truth it's the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah. Well, especially for a lot of younger people, is that they fear, we have the fear of missing out, but it's just like the fear of losing the fun and the youth and I'm not going to be able to go to the bar and drink anymore. I'm not going to be able to party, and I'm not going to be able to do this, and I'm not. But it's, well, you also get to do this.
Yeah. Well, and the truth is that the last one, celebration. It's a godly principle to celebrate. King David, didn't he dance?
Mm-hmm. He danced shirtless in the streets,
Yeah.
praising the Lord.
Yeah, and his wife was like,
Stop, bro.
"Stop, man! You're embarrassing me."
Yeah, he got jiggy with it.
Embarrassing me.
Yeah, right. King David would get jiggy with it, and she wasn't a fan.
And he was like, "Hey,
I'm praising God.
I'm praising God.
What do
man.
you?
I'm losing my mind over God."
Right. Amen. Right.
And so it's okay.
It's okay. It's kind of like being a Jesus freak,
And you're just like,
and that's fine.
But here's the funny thing is like, okay, we'll talk about this. So when years ago, where I was, our church, years ago, you weren't as free as you are now. You
Sure,
know,
I see. Yeah.
you know, at a football game, I can,
Right. Yes.
bah, bah, and play.
Yeah.
But if I'm standing in church, I'm like,
Modest.
better put your hands in your pocket,
Mm.
put them behind you. Got to roll your hips.
Yes. Roll your hips.
Yeah, it's a old person thing. But anyway,
Okay. Yeah. Stand
why-
upright.
that's why.
So that's why you're old school. I'm new school.
But you're now it's like be free. And so years ago, God freed me, and I'm like, I'm lifting my hands. And one guy come up to me, he goes, how can you do that?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm
free.
I'm like, no, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna lift my hand.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like punching in the air, but
Uh-huh.
but my wife, if you stand next to my wife, now my wife was like, settle down.
Really?
She's like, she's I don't want to say disciplined. No, she's more anal retentive,
Anal retentive, yeah.
or OCD.
She wants to be calm.
Well, no, she wants to do right.
Yes. Okay.
If she's going to do something, she had a party here the other day. There
Yeah.
was like 12 or 14 women here,
Yeah.
and everything was. She sets the table right.
Perfect.
She has food right.
Yes.
And she wants everybody to feel God's love.
Yes.
That's what she does.
Yes.
And then let the Spirit move. But anyway, she
Yeah.
would stand there, you know,
Right.
and I'd be like, you know,
Hey.
yeah,
Yeah.
because when I was in high school and
Right.
college, and in the Navy,
Mhm.
I mean, I would go to discos every night,
Heck yeah.
and I would dance.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it.
Part of who you are.
Yeah, I mean, I
Right.
got a picture of me at my kid's wedding. I'm acting like a fool.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
I felt like King David,
Nice.
but I was free.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, she's like, I don't know what happened, but she got free.
Mm.
And you stand next to my wife at church, and you're
Yeah.
like, that woman is excited, and she's not doing it to show off or anything
Right.
like that. She's not like, she's just being joyous.
Genuinely the joy out of her heart.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's okay. And then you're like, wow, that was like really fun
Yeah.
doing worship.
Right.
How I
Worship's
wanna
my
do it.
favorite part.
Yeah.
I love it.
And so it's okay to celebrate.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. God actually wants you to celebrate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we as Christians aren't like dead.
Oh, quite the opposite. We are alive. And that's the whole point of being a Christ follower, as I like to say, is you are delivered from death to life, all right? And your life, you're living, should reflect that. And I think that part of that is discipline. And again, you hear that and you go, well, that's just lame. And now I'm going to have to give up all this fun stuff that I do. And it's like, well, you have to have I think the whole point of discipline is you have to have the eternal perspective. Because once you realize that this life is, once you're saved,
You have to have that.
yes. Well, because this living is the first part of your eternal life. It says in the scriptures that Paul says it all the time, you are literally a new creation. You are renewed by the transforming of your mind, or the new creation has come. Jesus would say the kingdom of heaven has come. And so if you're to take that, and if you're to say, okay, well then he really means it, then our heavenly life begins here on earth once we're saved, right?
Right.
And I want my heavenly life to be lived in alignment with God because he's God, right? And I'm his son, and I'm called to that. So it really is me needing to clean out my temple, right? It says that the body is the temple for the Holy Spirit. And if I really am truly living the first half of my heavenly life, prior to my death and resurrection, I want to make sure that my temple is cleaned out, know?
Right.
Because God is here in me.
Yeah.
And so I need to have discipline to ensure that I'm living the heavenly life.
Or you
Honoring
meet,
to God.
do you ever meet a Christian and their life is a freaking disaster?
Mm-hmm.
You're like,
Yes.
I'm not judging,
Yes.
but I am saying that
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't remind me of anybody that I'd want to
Emulate.
emulate.
Right.
Big word.
See, I'm an author.
But I don't, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to switch over to this other word
Yeah.
because you don't hear it too often. Simplicity.
I like that a lot,
And
actually.
simplicity. So we go. So what does that mean? I mean, you could come into my house and we live simply.
Yeah.
But it's a really, I mean, people walk in there like, wow,
Yeah.
this is like really nice.
I like it in here.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
And it's simple, but it's like, I mean, there's nothing inexpensive. Well, there's probably a lot of things inexpensive.
Sure.
First of all, I'm not allowed to this day,
Okay.
I still don't know how much my daughter's wedding costs.
Oh, no.
They won't tell me.
What?
They won't tell me
How
much
did
it
you
was.
go? Did you just swipe the card and close your eyes?
No, my wife swiped the card and closed her eyes.
Oh, God.
But anyway.
Heaven forbid.
But we live a very simple life. And what happens is you go, does that mean it's boring? Does that mean I'm not allowed to have throw pillows or I'm not allowed to do things? No, what ends up happening is that simplicity is like, things are not going to bring freedom and happiness.
Yeah.
Simplicity is, I live in a way so that I'm kind of probably messing this up, but it's not complicated. I don't have to have a boat. I don't have to have a car. I don't have to have all these things.
Yep.
But then, because I'm living simply, I get to do other things that are
More
I would
important.
I'd never be able to do it. Like
Yes.
I took like 2 weeks and went to a number of mission trips.
Nice.
And so, it was like a lot of money, but it was like, well, we got the money.
Yeah.
And because we live debt free now.
Yes.
And so we don't do a lot of like exotic things because we don't care to.
Right.
But I love to go on a mission trip.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think
So it
that is-
allows other things.
Yes.
It allows you freedom because you don't have to take care of your stuff.
Right. Right. That's true. I like the living simply because it's what are you tied to here in the world, right? Storing up treasures like Jesus said, treasures here on earth where they will be stolen by thieves and eaten by moths, or treasures in heaven, which ultimately is more important. And I like the living simply because we could also talk, once we get to that, about things like the Sabbath or things like rest or things like how do you order your time, things like that, because that's what I have been focusing on a lot lately is like everybody my age wants to be a multimillionaire. It's all about the grind. You got to wake up at 5 a.m. and do 1,000 push-ups, and then you got to work for 5,000 hours a week, and you got to do this, and you got to do this, and you have to do more. But I'm like, what if God calls you to do less and let him do more, right?
Yeah.
And I get to rest in his presence, and I get to live simply. Wouldn't you want that?
Yeah.
Because I think I want that.
Well, and it doesn't come natural because the devil says,
Right.
well, aren't you missing out on something? Because
You're doing more.
You should be,
Yeah. You should be here.
what's the word, like, sophisticated.
Right.
You should be more sophisticated.
be more
That's what the
sophisticated.
world, that's what liberals say that,
Yeah.
well,
What do the liberals say, Chris? What do they say?
I'm not,
No, what do you?
I'm trying to make sure that I don't offend anybody like I did last week. We live in a world that's like honors higher educated people. What's that called?
Having a PhD or
But like really smart, like we're really,
of tenured people.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but simplicity is like, see, I'm like, you don't really need. I'm going to stop while I'm ahead.
Well, here to that point, you're not wrong, because I know Jesus had said in the Gospels, he was praising unto God. He was saying, "Thank you, Lord, that you reveal things to the little children and to the meek of the earth, and not to the sophisticated, not to the Pharisees."
Sophisticated.
Yeah. Oh, so we already said that word. Yeah. So not to the sophisticated people. Thank God that you have made this truly the simple gospel. A lot of the times in church, I hear it called the simple gospel because it truly is. Living a Christian life doesn't mean I'm going to saddle all these burdens and I'm going to have to do all these things and I'm going to have to live this certain way and I'm going to have to give up all this. It's a simple life, and it is a good life.
And so, I mean, my kids are intellectuals.
Okay.
And so, I'm not. I know.
Really?
And so, oh my God. So prior to World War II,
Yeah.
people lived in communities outside, and it was
Yeah.
you were raised on a family farm.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
You-
yes.
the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
And so then all of a sudden people had to move into the cities to get jobs. And then people that moved to the cities had to do something with their kids because they both had to work. And so they went into the school system. And so it's
the Industrial Revolution and its consequences.
and so then we're like, well, if you get an education, you can get a better job.
Yes.
And if you get a bigger education, you can get an even better job, and you don't have to work as hard.
I hear that all the time.
And at my car wash, I mean, everybody wants to be the boss. I'm like, hey, I'm going to promote you to be like our head cashier. Well, does that mean? And so the other day, I'm like, well, I need you outside.
Yeah, I'm the head cashier.
I'm going to go outside and help.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to go outside and help because you're good, but you're not that good. So anyway, so we live in this world that we've started to worship higher educated people or people, especially computer people. I mean, when I was growing up, computer people were called computer nerds.
My grandfather was like one of the pioneers. He worked at Honeywell and was one of the pioneers of like early computers the size of this room and stuff like that. And he was the nerd.
And so we worship these people with doctorates and everything. And we're like, well, they're really, really smart. And we forgot that there's people like me that I just don't do that way. But I can guarantee you that I can walk into the car wash and never do that ever before and figure it out.
Sure.
And they're like, well, how do you know how to do that? Well, I watched the guy do it the one time, and we can probably get this. Today we had this hose broke off, and me and Roman, my general manager, we're putting. He did more than I did, but I know what I'm looking at. I know what I'm doing, and so there's this. We've turned the world into like this hierarchy of if you're a computer whiz, like I said. 30 years ago, you were like, people would beat the crap out of you. You're like, okay, computer
nerd.
boy. Now, they're the richest people in the world.
People in tech in Silicon Valley are the most rich people and influence everything.
Yeah, and that's great. But we still need someone to know how to turn on the switch.
Yes. You still need someone.
How did I get here?
Right. Yeah. Simple. Life can be simple, and I think this is a good place to.
And it's okay.
Yes, absolutely. I think this would be a good place to end. Is that?
Are we already there?
Yeah.
Holy cow!
I know, right? We can keep yapping.
We could.
We can keep yapping.
We could
for
go longer.
Another hour, but I really do. I like this plan that we can outline here for the next couple of weeks, kind of like how we did Baller for Jesus, where we have a playlist for that series. And this will be our discipline series. And we'll talk about how it is to get into the regular rhythm of things, how to live a simple life, how it is to get into prayer and meditation and fasting even. So I think each one of these chapters will be a really good place to
So if you order it online, it's Richard Foster, Celebration of Disciplines. And next week we're going to go the spiritual disciplines, the door to liberation. We're going to talk about that. So that's your homework.
Page 1, the door to liberation.
You know, this is called discipleship, what we're doing right now.
Really? No way.
Because we're talking about spiritual things.
Yeah.
And you're kind of helping me think differently, and I'm trying to help you think differently.
Yeah. Helping me learn.
Bringing you back down.
Lord knows I don't know anything. Yep. I think I have it all figured out. I don't.
Here's the bottom line is I paid for this equipment, so you
That's
need
true.
me. You need me.
I am subservient to whatever you desire. See you next week.
Love you. Bye.